Everybody, and welcome to the April 1st meeting of the Temple Terrace City Council. I know it's April Fool's Day, but we really are going to have a City Council meeting. And so I'd like to remind you to please silence your electronic devices. And if you would, please stand and join me in the invocation and the pledge. Lord, we begin our meeting tonight in gratitude for your many blessings. We ask for your guidance and wisdom as we endeavor to advance the common good of our city. Please continue to bless our city, its residents and businesses, and especially our professional staff who work selflessly in service to our community. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For those of you who don't often join us at our city council meetings, which is most of the normal people in the world, we do have a tradition here in Temple Terrace. We started a couple years ago where we start each meeting with a fun, historical, or interesting fact about our city or the region. We've had to expand out to the region because we're running out of interesting stuff. So we rotate that duty, and tonight it falls on me, and I realized this when the clerk reminded me, I think Thursday of last week, and they said there's no way that's going to happen. And so I have asked our unofficial, semi-unofficial historian, Marissa Robinson, who doubles as our Deputy Director of Community Development, if she could pull out a fun fact, and she agreed to do so. So on my behalf, Marissa Robinson is here to present a fun or interesting fact.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. So my fun fact is about the 1950s in Temple Terrace. This is one of the largest growth that Temple Terrace had. From 1950 to 1960, the census data shows the population increased from 433 residents to 4,752. The development boom brought on new architects, designers, and the mid-century modern style. One of those architects was Frank de Pasquale. De Pasquale graduated from North Carolina State University in 1951. He was heavily influenced by Frank Lloyd Wright. First picture, Maria. There we go. That is De Pasquale on the right, and Frank Lloyd Wright is on the left. He met him when he visited NC State in 1950. After graduation, he worked at a couple of architectural and engineering firms in Durham, North Carolina, until 1959, when he moved to Tampa. While he only lived in Tampa for 3 years, he was able to complete an elementary school, a few additions to other schools, and 3 homes. 2 of those homes are in Temple Terrace. The first one is the Gordon and Alida Tennant House at 514 South River Hills Avenue. This house, you can see the heavy influence that Frank Lloyd Wright had on De Pasquale. The house has the heavy cantilevered porch that is very Frank Lloyd Wright. The second house is the Randolph and Betty Jo Jackson House at 530 South River Hills, which is another beautiful example of the mid-century modern architecture. Temple Terrace currently has a short list of 62 mid-century modern homes that could have historic preservation designation based solely on their architectural style. And that's my fun fact.
That's your fun fact. Thank you.
You're welcome.
See, that was way better than what I would have come up with. Way better. So you were good to pick tonight to be here. So thank you very much, Marissa. So our first item of business is a proclamation for National Crime Victims Week, and we are honored to have our Hillsborough County State Attorney here with us tonight, Miss Susie Lopez. And Susie, whoever you'd like to bring with you, if you want to bring them up, that's fine.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to bring a familiar face to you.
Yes.
I believe you know Chris Jeffords. We're honored to be here tonight. Thank you.
Yes, and for those of you who don't know, Chris Jeffords is a Temple Terrace resident, retiree from our police department, and now is a victim advocate at the state attorney's office. And so thank you both for being here. It's an honor to get you here, Susie. So whereas Florida is a law and order state and will always provide a voice to crime victims and their families, National Crime Victims Week provides the opportunity to recognize the importance of crime victim services, ensure that victims have access to services and support, and promote discussion on how communities, organizations, and professionals can work together to reach all victims. Dedicated victim service providers are working daily to meet the needs of crime victims, and we commend their efforts to expand services to victims who face barriers to meaningful access to services such as isolation, lack of transportation, language limitations, or cultural barriers. The Temple Terrace City Council wishes to commend the Hillsborough County Victim Assistance Program for providing exemplary services to victims of crime within the city of Temple Terrace and throughout Hillsborough County. During National Crime Victims Week, the City of Temple Terrace renews its commitment to providing survivors of crime the support they need to heal. As a community, let us all work together to stop crimes before they happen and to give victims the support they need to restore a sense of trust and safety to move forward toward healing and justice. Now, therefore, I, Andy Ross, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, do hereby set aside April 6th through 12th, 2025 as National Crime Victims' Rights Week. So would you like to say a few words?
Mayor, thank you very much. On behalf of the entire State Attorney's Office and our Victims Assistance Program, we are honored to be here. As you know, we have worked together for several years now. My office stands with victims. I am honored to have someone who I refer to as my honorary aunt who is here, who is just a staunch advocate on behalf of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. And I am pleased that my office is going to be having our second annual Victim Resource Fair at the University of Tampa next Wednesday night, April 9th. I'm sorry for the shameless plug, but we want to get in anywhere that we can. I meet with families every week who have lost someone as a result of a crime, and it is my honor to serve the people of Hillsborough County, and my office is honored to stand on behalf of victims. So thank you very much for this proclamation.
Well, you guys do a terrific job, and I go back to the day when we didn't have victims' rights services in this county, and I remember when this move began, and the law enforcement community was kind of confused by what this was going to look like. That was like mid-'80s, and I'm dating myself now, I know, but to see what this has developed into and grown into is tremendous, and it'd be nice if we have a day when we don't need you, Chris, in that role, but as long as we do, thank you for heading this up. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Linda is coming in.
That wasn't a big mystery who you were talking about.
Sorry. Oh, you're fine. All right. Ready, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Great. Next is a proclamation for National Library Week, and our own Teresa Frazier is here. She is the director of the Library Division, for those of you who don't know. And we have some members of the Library Board. Hi. Good. Come on up. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Hi. So, whereas libraries have long served as trusted and treasured institutions where people of all ages, interests, and backgrounds can come together and learn, libraries of all types are at the heart of their cities, towns, schools, and campuses. Libraries offer members of the community a welcoming space and opportunities to explore new passions through technology, programs, and services. Libraries strive to develop and maintain programs and collections that are as diverse as the populations they serve. Libraries and librarians work to create an equitable society by providing free access to accurate information. Libraries are a resource for all community members, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, socioeconomic status, by offering services and educational programming that transforms their lives and strengthens communities. Now, therefore, I, Andy Ross, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Temple Terrace, Florida, do hereby proclaim April 6th through 12th, 2025 as National Library Week. And would you ladies like to say a few words?
Mr. Mayor, City Council, as always, I'd like to invite any of you to stop by and take an hour shift on the front desk with us. If you really want to experience the library, we'll let you know when a good time is. Now, if you ask someone why they think libraries are important, you're likely to get several answers. But the top 5 we found was they promote literacy, they provide free access to information and resources, they foster community engagement, preserve history and culture, and they serve as vital learning centers and community hubs. And I know if you've been watching the news lately, yesterday we had a bit of a shock when we learned that the Institute of Museum and Library Services laid off their staff and are talking about potential cuts. We don't know what that'll mean for us in the future, but we're going to do our job and we're going to do to the best of our ability. And we think that we'll make it through,
Thank you.
as always.
Fraser, it's
Yep, last year, I just give you a couple statistics, which I know you love. We had 30,818 internet users in the library. We circulated 334,018 items. This includes the physical items, but also digital items. We have currently 60,804 library card holders that say Temple Terrace on them. And our collection is currently at 102,099 items.
wow.
So we're pretty busy.
I guess you are. And so I'd like to also thank you and your staff. I know this isn't the first time I brought it up, but after Hurricane Milton, the library staff really jumped into gear, and it was unplanned. Of course, I don't like to tell the public that. Everything's planned. We have this all orchestrated. But the reality is we didn't plan for this, and the library jumped in to fill a need and operated as a comfort station for, gosh, I don't know, a week or a long time. I know that.
3 days.
3 days? Oh, it seemed like longer than that.
It did
Yeah.
seem longer, but
And so, that's not part of their normal responsibilities, but you guys pivoted and took care of that for our community, so we thank you for that too. And the 2 volunteer library board members, we thank you for being here and thank you for your service to the city. And James, why don't you come down with me? Sure. All right, let's give them a round of applause.
you sound surprised.
I am surprised.
All right, we have to get up here for a picture, so come on, everybody up.
She didn't tell about the holly hobby and
Here, you gotta be in the middle.
cake pans we have in the puzzles.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for what you do. Appreciate it. Thank you. And we have one more. If Mr. Jamie Robe is here, if you'd like to approach, Mr. Robe is here with us tonight from the Hillsborough County Children's Board to receive a proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month. And this one reads, whereas ensuring the safety, health, and well-being of children is fundamental to the strength and prosperity of our community and requires the collective efforts of residents, educators, faith-based organizations, healthcare professionals, business, civic leaders, and others. Child abuse and neglect remain critical issues that demand our attention, as every child has the inherent right to grow in a secure, nurturing, and supportive environment that fosters their development and potential. Promoting the mental, physical, and emotional health of children and their families, along with access to essential resources such as economic stability, housing, education, and healthcare, is vital to creating thriving communities. The Children's Board of Hillsborough County and the City of Temple Terrace is steadfast in its commitment to preventing child abuse and neglect through advocacy, partnerships, and funding of programs that strengthen families and enhance protective factors. The Children's Board, through its Keeping Kids Safe partnership, joins Prevent Child Abuse Florida's Pinwheel for Prevention, Hillsborough Infant Mental Health, Ounce of Prevention Fund of Florida, Safe Kids Greater Tampa, in empowering families, caregivers, and community members with the knowledge and tools necessary to foster healthy child development and prevent abuse and neglect. April serves as a national call to action, urging individuals and organizations to prioritize the safety of children while understanding that the mission to protect children is an all year round event. Now therefore I, Andy Ross, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of City of Temple Terrace, Florida, do hereby set aside April 2025 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And thank you, Mr. Robe, for being here with us. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members. I'm an honored to be here as representative of the Children's Board, staff, and the board itself, and all the kids and families that get helped with our organization in partnership with the county and the 3 cities here in Hillsborough County. Temple Terrace plays a big role because we have a beautiful family resource center over on Fowler Avenue, just kind of the other side of where Applebee's is. And I invite everyone in the audience or anyone can come and visit anytime. We have lots of free programs there for children and the families, educational things, play groups, counseling, and we have dental truck that comes through, health doctors, everything that you can think of. And it's really important to have these proclamations because part of it is a mindset. There's 4 types of abuse that children go through. It's physical, emotional, sexual, and then neglect. And unfortunately, the bad news is like 1 in 7 kids experiences one of those things last year. So it's an ongoing effort. It takes all of us, but having a mindset that we are going to be part of the solution is one of the big things, and just supporting each other and our families here. And I live in Temple Terrace, and I've raised 4 kids here, Deer Park Avenue, it's a great community, and I know that you all have it in your heart to help with this, so I'm honored. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rope. Let's give him a round of applause. I think he makes good pictures.
Yeah.
I haven't met the chief, too.
Chief, let's get on the other side. We'll put Mr. Robe in. There we go. You're the center of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate you coming out. Okay, next item is we have 2 board appointments to make. One is for the Hillsborough County Community Action Board, and this vacancy has existed for quite some time, and I'm really happy that we have an applicant that has stepped up. We received 1 application from Ms. Sherry Donahue, and Ms. Donahue, since her regrets, she had a conflict and unable to be here tonight. Yes.
Could you describe for the public like what this board is and what it does? Just in case in the future we need to have anybody sit on.
Maybe I can. Not exactly. No, I can't, but I do know in general terms what it is, and that is it works with, this is a county board that we have a representative on. And this board makes advisory recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners about where certain fundings go. Like in Temple Terrace, we are the recipients of some of that funding, particularly at the Lightfoot Center. We have senior programs. We have at least 1 food bank at Corpus Christi here in the city. I think we have more than 1. We have some are embedded in schools. So this board makes recommendations about how to spend some of the funding streams that come into the county via the state or federal government. And this is a group of citizens who have an aptitude for that make advisory decisions. And so this has been a vacancy, like I mentioned, for a while. I've reached out to a few people trying to get this filled and had very little luck. So I really appreciate Mrs. Donahue for stepping up to finally fill this. And just for the Temple Terrace residents in attendance, it's very important that, particularly for these Hillsborough County boards where we have an appointed representative, it's very important that we fill those. The county really when they create these boards and they give the city a seat at the table, they really don't like it when that seat remains vacant. So, just mention that to you if you'd like to serve, and keep an eye on our website because we do have vacancy. We have other vacancies currently, so thank you. So if it's acceptable, council, is there a motion to approve the appointment of Sherry Donahue as a member of the Community Action Board?
Yes. I move to appoint Sherry Donahue to the Hillsborough County Community Action Board for a term April 1, 2025 through April 1, 2029.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays. Thank you, Mrs. Donahue, for your willingness to serve. The next is an appointment to the Municipal Code Enforcement Board. There's one regular member's vacancy on the MCEB. We have one applicant from David Redding, who is a current member applying for reappointment. I don't know if Mr. Redding is here. I do not see him. Council, if it's acceptable, I'd entertain a motion to approve the appointment of David Redding.
Move to approve David Redding to the Municipal Code Enforcement Board for the term beginning April 1st, 2025 to April 1st, 2028.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Thank you very much, council. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from our March 18th council meeting? And if so, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Is there any corrections to the minutes, adjustments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. The minutes are adopted. Next, persons wishing to address the council on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. There are forms in the back of the room for anybody who would like to address the council at this time. I currently have 2 requests. We do have a 30-minute time limit for this section of the meeting, which won't happen tonight since we only have 2 requests. But I like to say this once in a while because sometimes we do get, that's only 10 people, so sometimes we do get more. And if we run into the 30 minutes, we postpone. We end that section so that we can go on with council business, and then we resume public comment at the end of the meeting. I just don't like to read that only when it happens, because then people think you're changing the rules, or that those are the rules. So currently have 2 requests to speak. The first one in was Mr. Loeb. We ask that you begin by stating your name and city of residence.
My name is Charles Loeb. I live in Terrace Park. And the first thing I wanted to mention is, of course, about the library sale. There was $1,440 made, so the publicity does help. The other thing I wanted to talk about, though, was I wore the shirt purposely, had to do my sort of participation within the Ride with the Bike with the mayor back on March 7th. I walked over there and all that, and I did renew some acquaintances over with FDOT and over the Cutter Center that I have had in the past. But mainly the thing while you all were biking that was very interesting was my talk with that young lady who was from Tampa General Hospital. And we were talking about health care, like surprise. Anyway, and it was kind of funny at the beginning of the conversation about who should be protecting whom in dealing with health care. In other words, when I told her that in the 8 years and 8 months that I have had Medicare, and I've been eligible for Medicare, I went for the use of it 0 times, she was shocked because I keep myself in good physical condition. I told her anybody that that can't walk 3.5 miles on a given day needs Medicare Part B more than I do, because I can, and as a matter of fact, on that day, because I had to go over to Fowler Avenue, I walked 6 miles rather than really 3.5. We also got talking into about other aspects of it and why it is such a mess. I'll give you a couple of statistics to show you just how overwhelmed the healthcare system is. In Consumer Reports, I read that about half the medical bills have errors on them. And then on March 2nd, just before, on a radio commercial, just before the bike thing, according to Morgan & Morgan, there is 240,000 people that die over medical malpractice, which is many times the whatchamacallit. So we got into this a little bit, and what we agreed on is that the system should be balanced. And one of the things, in other words, between the rights of the people putting in the money and the rights of the people getting, using the healthcare system. One issue on it was about the idea of well people using the healthcare system. I'm opposed to that, strongly opposed, because the system is overwhelmed. And not only that, as you can see from the statistics itself, the healthcare people can't handle even the sick people. We need the healthcare system for the sick people, and we need the younger future generations to have money when they come around, when it comes to their time to retire. And those things kind of concern me. One other quick thought I did want to mention, speaking of Library Week, that I had my first coffee house reading of a poem last night at the library.
Thank you, Mr. Loeb. The second request, there's actually two people here, our friends from Florida College Academy. Are you going to speak together, or you each want 3 minutes, or how's this? Did you intend to speak together? Because I have one form, so, okay, that's great. So we have our friends from Florida College Academy here. This is Amanda Olson and Jessica Johnson. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for your time. And we wanted to come on behalf of our small little school. We serve about 450 students right here in Temple Terrace and stay pretty quiet most of the time. But we want to shout from the rooftops the accomplishments that some of our students have been working on this year. Our high school Beta Club competed at state competition, and 25 students have earned spots to compete at nationals. And our Odyssey of the Mind teams, you want to talk about that, Jessica?
Sure. We have 4 teams going to state competition April 12th in the structure category and vehicle category, where they have to build structures out of balsa wood. My earrings are made of balsa wood. And our elementary team's holding about 265 pounds. Our middle school's 580, and our high school team is approaching 1,000 pounds of these little 15-gram structures. So we're extremely proud of what they have done. And our high school team is hoping for a 4-peat to Worlds, hoping for their 4th trip, which will be in Michigan. So we're really excited about that.
So as we look to celebrate these kids and help support them, we have been hosting a community event that has mostly been our local Florida College Academy community, but we wanted to invite each of you with a complimentary ticket to come this Saturday. It's on our campus in our cafeteria, and we're doing pancakes and sausage and coffee and juice, and it is open to the community for $10 per person, and all the proceeds go towards helping our students attend those competitions. We also have a silent auction going on during that, and performances by those talented kids. So we'd love for you to join us if you're able to, and to see the community come out and support all of our students in Temple Terrace. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much for being
Thank you.
here. Thank you. Are there other members of the public who wish to address the council at this time? Okay. Very good. Seeing none, our next order of business is a resolution approving an extension request for final site plan SPR 22-05. Marissa Robinson, our Deputy Director of Community Development, is back wearing another hat to explain the petition.
All right, good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Tonight I'm going to bring before you the site plan extension for 2205, which is 8901 Maisland Drive. Staff received an extension request on March 4th, 2025. The site plan was approved on March 7th, 2023 under Resolution 3223. Applicant is requesting a 1-year extension of time to develop the property at 8901 Maisland Drive, as previously approved without modifications. Applicant advised that the delay was due to finance challenges, and interior build-out design. According to the City Code, if the original site plan is approved by City Council, an extension also is subject to City Council approval. Here is the aerial of the property. It is located at the intersection of Maisland Drive and Professional Place in the 301 Industrial Park. It is currently vacant and zoned light industrial with the future land use of industrial. Here is the previously approved site plan. The site plan was approved for a 38,744 square foot warehouse with 49 on-site parking spaces. The extension request was reviewed by the Development Review Committee with no objections noted. Staff is recommending approval, which would allow for the owner to move forward with the permitting phase. The applicant is here tonight, and thank you, and I'll stand for questions.
Would the applicant like to make any comments? It's up to you. It's not mandatory. Okay.
If you ask me a question, I'll answer.
Very good. Thank you for being here tonight, sir. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none. Council members, questions for staff or the applicant? I see Councilmember Fernandez.
So exactly what is the process? The applicant is asking for an extension, but if we grant this extension, they can move into the permitting process. So can you walk us through the reason an extension would be necessary at this time? Because to me, a permitting process would start the beginning of construction. You wouldn't need an extension.
Site plans are good for 2 years. And as I said, it was previously approved on March 7th, and they have not started construction or the permitting phase. And so on March 7th is when we received the extension request.
Okay, so in order for this project to go forward as it is approved from 2023, council will need to approve an extension because then the site plan would still be in effect. Otherwise, they would need to get a new site plan review?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schisler.
Just curious, were you able to secure your financing? Were you able to secure your financing?
Yes, sir, we're all,
Good.
everything's ready to go. Matter of fact, we already submitted.
Sir, could you approach the podium, please? Because we can hear you, but nobody else can. And we need your name, yes, please.
Ron Allen.
Okay, sir.
Everything's been, finances are done, closing's been completed. Matter of fact, we just submitted all of our paperwork to the county for our permits for the building. Like she said, the site's been approved back before. It just took a long period of time for different finances and different things to go through, and they finally got all that squared away and the interior design's done. So the next phase, as far as just waiting on our permit from the city for the building, but we're ready to go as far as the site work. We can start tomorrow if you'd let us.
Congratulations.
Thank you
It's a
so
tough
much.
environment out there.
Yes, sir, thank you.
I have one more question.
Councilmember Fernandez.
I just want to confirm for the people watching that this is the same site plan that was approved in 2023. There are no modifications to this site plan. This is just an extension.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, council members, thank you. If there are no other questions, is there a motion?
Move to approve resolution approving extension request for final site plan SPR 22-05.
Second.
Motion is second. Is there discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. The extension is granted. Mr. Allen, thank you for your investment in Temple Terrace. Next, we'll move into council business, and our first item is a Riverside Park Design and Engineering update from Half and Associates. Joe Loretta, and there's several people from Half. I'll let you guys organize your presentation, so welcome. Good to see you. Good evening.
Well, good evening. Thanks for having us. Can you pull up the PowerPoint presentation?
You will need to tell us when you begin talking who you are, so the clerk can get your name associated with who's talking.
All right. Well, Joe Loretta, our Temple Terrace office is 12478 Telecom Drive, Suite 100. I'll primarily be the only one presenting today, but we'll have multiple other staff here for questions and so forth. Let me see if I can move this forward. All right. Well, great. So the project team with me today, Laura Duplain, project manager, myself, Martin Steffen, the senior project manager, your staff, Carl Langerfield, in the back, and then our community involvement coordinator, Nicole Miller here. So before I go too far into the presentation, Mayor, I want to thank you for your kind of history review of the project about 2 months ago. So because of that, I don't really want to belabor much of the history of the overall project. I think everybody has a pretty good understanding of that. And I do have an overall 30-slide presentation or so forth, but at the same time, glad for this to be interactive. If anybody has any questions or so on and so forth, please don't hesitate to reach out and discuss through the process. The goal that we're going to be presenting today is an update of the conceptual site plan from where we were before to where we are today. We will then take any comments, feedback that we can take today or through the next weeks or so, and then come back for our final presentation of the concept to you all within the next month to 2 months.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. I just want to clarify, if council, if you would just jot your questions down rather than Otherwise, we'll never let Mr. Loretta get through his. So we'll make notes,
Yeah,
and
no
then at the end, we'll go back if it.
Yeah, I'm glad to get through the whole thing as
Yep.
I'm just going to jump right into it. So where I start off, we're really going to start with the survey results from the initial community meeting concept plan. The first question, how often you visit the site? 65% really have never visited, just a few times per year. 35% are coming to the site approximately once per month, or a few times per month to weekly. How do you really plan to utilize the park? The majority of the folks were looking for exercise and trails, then for water access, and then lastly, it's just more gathering and picnic type opportunities. The next question is, there are several benefits to the Riverside Park design. What are those benefits that you're looking for? A lot of it comes down to pedestrian walkability and these added amenities, along with really focus on environmental sensitive design. You will see that we have added a few amenities to this park that may not have been included at this time when the original survey was. Most of those came from the original pedestrian master plan of downtown that were regretfully excluded from the prior plan. So the next question, please select your preferred amenities. The Riverfront Boardwalk, the observation tower came in primary focus. A lot of water accessibility to the water was primarily focused and favored. But generally, everybody was really in favor of a multitude of these amenities coming to the site. Many of the staff, many of the community comments really included that. So this next slide is a lot of text, but I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. There's a few of these that we're going to have individual slides on as we go forward. So the last two questions of the survey allow people to provide their own comments and so forth. And so this is just kind of a summarization of many of those comments. The first one concerns on homeless and security. We're going to get into that in a separate slide. Existing play equipment, the existing playground section. There were some requests for potential surfacing reconstruction, updated surfacing, maybe look at relocation of the Angel Hope to potentially allow for a new playscape in that area. Potentially the request for more playground equipment at age 2 to 5. Outdoor fitness was requested. That's definitely been included within the updated concept. A splash pad. At this point, staff's not really looking to move forward with the splash pad concept, but if that is something that the council is truly looking for, then we can reevaluate. Part of the reason is this is more of a neighborhood park, and a splash pad will definitely become a driver to bring folks to this region more as a regional destination. Dog park was another one. It can provide some park activation and reduce homeless population just through that park activation, but it also provides some noise and so forth to the region. There are also 2 other dog parks in the area as well. Drinking fountains were requested. That has the opportunity to be included within the project. A bat tower was kind of brought up, I'm sure, because your fun fact, a bat tower is historical to the region. At this point, the staff's not looking to include a bat tower, but we can definitely consider some bat houses and things such as that if that's something the council would really want to pursue. Pickleball. Pickleball is really more of an active sport. It's not really appropriate for this sort of location, just given the noise that the pickleball gameplay has been. In fact, it's odd, but the city of Denver has actually banned pickleball within the city limits. It's very kind of interesting. But bike trails, so this park is not overly large. It's not really one that bike trails where people are supposed to be riding bikes at fast speeds. This is a great location for children to learn bikes, so on and so forth. We're not prohibiting people to ride bikes through this park, but it's not as though it's more of a destination of a biking opportunity, not bike trails within the park and so forth. Restrooms, we're going to also discuss that in a little bit later slide. Lighting and illumination, making sure we're having appropriate lighting is something that will be further evaluated as we go through the design process, but then also, and it's also something when we get into and discuss with security, having views through the park at night, while also kind of minimizing the point source lighting on your neighbor and the neighbors. Public art, it's definitely an opportunity that we can discuss further with the City Arts Council as well as the City Council if that's something that you are looking to include. Signage program, kind of a wayfinding citywide signage program was brought up. That's really not in our scope, but that's definitely something that could be included as a update to the pedestrian master plan and or to connect this park into the downtown core and so forth. Parking was brought up. We are going to be including parking. We'll discuss that. And then water connectivity was also brought up. When it comes to the restroom, so right now, if you look at the exhibit here and you can see that outer boundary, the majority of the site is really within a 2 to 3 minute walk. And so for smaller neighborhood parks like this, many facilities may not even have a restroom facility. Now, granted, right now, there almost isn't a restroom facility because it's never open, and then that's in kind of disrepair. But with that, if the council is adamant about wanting to add an additional restroom, then we can allocate some space really at the northeastern corner, kind of adjacent to the green lawn. But in the grand scheme of things, the overall site, everything's accessible within a 3 to 4 minute walk. And so the reality of what we need to focus on is making the restroom usable, cleaned, and secure, basically. It comes to a traffic study, and so there's some traffic concerns that were brought up. And so I think we poorly answered the question at that time, but I mean, this is a neighborhood park that's so small, it's going to generate a very small volume of traffic, but because of their questions and adamant element to the questions, we ended up having our traffic folks provide us a memo that we then provided to Carl and Carlos. And I mean, really, in the grand scheme of things, if you look at the ITE generation, this is generating just a few trips. If you just think a rule of thumb, this site is going to be generating less than 50 PM peak hour trips a day. None of that's really requiring a traffic study. This all being said, the road has been considered in the past for some speeding, which is a reason why there is one elevated crosswalk. What we're going to be looking to do is add a second elevated crosswalk, potentially add a mural between those two with the Public Arts Council, and then add some pedestrian beacon signage to allow basically a safe crosswalk from one side of the park to the other. So some survey results from the Homeless and Security. We have met with Chief Staley in the back. I think there was like March 11th or so, along with Officer Tamara Mihalopoulos. I'm sure I'm getting her name wrong, but we're going to focus on a few different elements to the design, and assuming the council is on board and it makes sense, we're going to look at the inclusion of security cameras. It's not really within any other parks, but the police department does have the capabilities to allow for security cameras. We're going to focus on open sight lines and landscaping to make sure that from the road it's lit up at night to a certain level that people can see through all the way through the park, that allows for comfortable policing of it at nighttime. We're going to allow for call boxes as an emergency type call box. Not sure it's really necessary at a small park like this, but it's something that we can consider. And then, the opportunity for existing restroom upgrades. I think as we get into this is something that we're glad to take any comments into the future. Part of the architectural style as it exists includes some red terracotta roofing, or red colored, terracotta colored roofing, and a little bit of Spanish style architecture. It's pretty dated in certain realms, but we are showing maintaining some of the terracotta red roofing, but turning it into a metal roofing, maybe adding some brick veneer across the base and cleaning up the stucco, cleaning up the doors, restroom fixtures inside, and so forth. But glad to take any comments or thoughts that you all have, as well as, just primary focus on that. One of the elements that I want to make sure I reassure is right now we're going to be coming back for an updated final concept plan. So the plan in no way, shape, or form is 100% complete. We're still open to ideas and consideration. This next slide, there were some concerns on trees. Right now there's around 200 canopy trees, maybe 35 palms, 4 understory trees. There's a good bit. We're really looking at removing just one 14-inch laurel oak, which was deemed to be in poor health by the city arborist, along with, let's say, 4 palm trees and then 3 golden rain trees, which are arguable on if they're more noxious than weed-type trees. I don't mind them, but the city arborist is not a fan of them as well. And so that's what we're looking to remove under the current site plan. We have the opportunity to install and include another 39 new trees beyond, could be canopy, flowering trees, a wide variety. So at the end of the day, it's my envisionment that the overall canopy for the site will be greater enhanced in the after condition than what it is today. So this is just a sketch looking kind of northwest into the site with the grand lawn at this, the grand lawn kind of in the foreground, the pond at the top right, and you can see some of the boardwalks and so forth coming out into the river. This next is a sketch from the south looking north, more focusing on kind of the overlook and some of the boardwalk access and activity. We've got a pretty detailed site plan. I'm not going to speak on this slide right here, as what we're going to do is blow up 4 different sections of the overall project, and I'll speak in detail on those so we can get a little bit more into what's going on in the site plan. So the first section is Springdale Pond, Stormwater Pond. One of the things I want to talk about was also brought up, or some questions on, hey, can we just like make this pond look like a water retention pond, more of a clean pond? And I mean, the answer is yes, we can. But the reality is it was previously permitted, I don't know, within the last 10, 15 years, I forget when, but to be made and permitted to mitigate for wetlands elsewhere, wetland mitigation elsewhere. It was built to become kind of a wetland and look generally as it does today. So with that, if we were to try to turn it back into a legitimate just water pond, then we'd have to add additional mitigation elsewhere and or pay into the mitigation bank to accomplish that. So that's something that can be done, but really originally it was designed and built to look kind of the way it does. What we will be doing is working with our environmental staff, looking at any noxious weeds that have grown up within, kind of identifying regions of where those are, and creating a maintenance plan for those to be removed and replaced with the plant material similar to what was existing or what was proposed when existing got permitted. Looking at this stormwater pond, Springdale Pond, and kind of the perimeter of the overall site, many of the elements did come from the downtown pedestrian master plan, which was developed and approved a year plus ago. We have entry plazas at the northwest and northeast corner. The northwest plaza has some trellis seating, potentially swings if we can work with manufacturers to allow it, overlooking the pond. The eastern section of the overall facility includes some outdoor exercise stations. We have a loop trail that kind of wraps around the entire pond area with a overlook and boardwalk on the southern side with views north along the pond. The southwestern corner is also kind of a little picnic grove as well underneath the nice, beautiful tree canopy that exists today. Here, if you can see within your screens there, looking kind of around, going from left and back around, looping around. The photo at the left side of your screen is looking through that entry plaza at the northwest corner of the site. Picture B is looking at kind of the outdoor fitness equipment. Picture C is looking at the picnic grove. D is kind of a southern view towards that overlook, or towards that boardwalk crossing over the existing pond. And then E is actually looking north from that overlook, or that boardwalk crossing the pond north along the pond. This is just an example of the outdoor fitness equipment that we're going to be looking to locate on the facility. This is one of 2 or 3 options that exist out there, but greenfield is what we're showing, and it's definitely utilized in many locations across the state. So the existing portion of the park that exists, this is the next slide we're going to get into. There is definitely, if the council desires, opportunities to expand some playgrounds underneath portions of the tree canopy that exist today. And so that is something that really hasn't been evaluated as of yet, but can be if that's something that is requested to look at further. If we do want to do that, we may have to remove a couple trees, but we could also incorporate some nature-based play elements and kind of have it tie into the natural environment, which would be a nice little element there. Kind of going around this overall project, we've got 2 new pedestrian crossings from east to west, from the existing park facility to what I guess we'll call the new park facility, the open lawn portion. And the first one on the left, letter H, that actual crossing has been shifted south off the road to avoid a nice 42-inch live oak at that kind of northeastern portion of the kind of, let's say, ditch and roadway. So that way we can look to maintain that 42-inch live oak and help within that section. Let's see here. Going around, we have a boardwalk that's running down the full east side of the ditch out to kind of the boardwalk along the waterfront. The boardwalk along the waterfront will allow for a kayak vendor to be able to situate out there. Carl has been working with a kayak vendor or two to discuss options for that. And then it continues out to a fishing pier, fishing dock, which there was some discussion on fishing dock, some positive, some negative within the review. In the end, you're going to have a landing platform to get to a kayak launch. So at minimum, we wanted a little bit larger than just the boardwalk itself, just so you could have views. And so if the fishing dock wants to be reduced, then that can. Here we also include that overlook tower that's been discussed. Let's see here. We're adding some picnic tables around, additional picnic table and another pavilion. And then there at item U, an updated monument sign for the park. These are just some existing photos of the facility from the existing signage, the existing restroom, the existing playground, and again, part of the request from some was maybe enhancing the surfacing within that existing playground, the Angel of Hope, and the existing pavilion. As we go into the next slide, this is showing some of the proposed enhancements. Picture A is showing new signage along with kind of that boardwalk crossing over the ditch there. Picture B is showing a little bit more enhanced of that boardwalk crossing over the ditch. Picture C is showing what, as we discussed earlier, what could be the restroom, what it could look like. Picture D is looking back towards the overlook, and picture E is looking from internal to the site out towards that overlook. So I guess what we're calling here is the vacant parcel, which is the new portion of the park. This is where a lot of excitement occurs, along with really around Springdale Pond. Here, this is really focused around the Grand Lawn, which is a 16,000 square feet approximate Grand Lawn oval with the pedestrian trail wrapping around. We have new pavilions, nothing of significant size. The two on the right side of your picture are just one bench, and then the one at the bottom left of the Grand Lawn is just two picnic table sizes. We are including a one-way 20-space parking lot that can be well vegetated and buffered from South Riverhead Drive. And then kind of a little bit of an entry plaza into that Grand Lawn section. Beyond this, let's see here, what else do I want to talk about? There, underneath the tree canopy, we have some sidewalks that connect, and then on the western W, I think that was just mislabeled, but underneath the tree canopy, there is areas where we could potentially include some maybe nature play on that side of the park versus the western side. It is an area that could include some additional enhancement, but it's also very nice to just be maintained passive. Here we get into, again, some, and I'm sorry for the audience, the screen's maybe not as big, but the pictures at the top left here, this is a view into the Grand Lawn through the entry plaza. Picture B is more of a bird's eye of that. Picture C is, a look at what the new pavilion could look like, fairly similar to the existing pavilions with a little bit of enhancements. We will be illuminating them at night to maintain light within those pavilions to reduce any sort of homelessness and so forth. Picture D, just, maybe what it looks like underneath the tree canopy, and then picture E is more of the boardwalk along the creek. One thing before I get to this video, I want to discuss that within that grand lawn, we are looking to include some enhanced turf within the grand lawn, so it shows off a little bit more as a signature. So hopefully this works. We shall see. There we go. So this is, south of the park, kind of looking at the overlook. You can see the boardwalk coming out to the floating kayak launch. You can see the overlook tower shown conceptually here is 20 feet high. When we get to the end of this video, you'll have drone footage that goes from that overlook showing kind of what existing conditions kind of look like. And really there's no opportunity to see any sort of existing homes or anything of that nature because it's just fully vegetated. When we get into the new park here, we're walking through and coming up upon the grand lawn. Showing off a little bit of the entry plaza and the parking lot, pavilion. You can see that pavilion showed 2 picnic tables. It's nothing of significant size there. We probably should have had music to this, but that's okay. Now we've got some picnic tables underneath the tree canopy, or not picnic tables, just benches and sidewalks underneath the tree canopy that then connect to the boardwalk that's running along kind of the ditch line. We'll vary between going over the ditch and then onto the just the upland portion right there. Looking across, you can see the existing park facility, existing restroom. I believe we're going to cross the park here and go to Springdale Pond. You can see the bridge crossing overlooking this pond facility right here. This is one of the pedestrian crosswalk connections similar to what exists today. And then what we did not show is kind of a mural between those 2 pedestrian crosswalks. Here we have the opportunity for a picnic grove underneath the treed canopy. We will have one of those be ADA accessible and can have more if necessary. On this side, this is where outdoor fitness equipment is located. We should probably speed this up for the final presentation here for y'all. But it's a nice little video. Entry plaza. We're going to come into this northwest quadrant, showing off some trellis features and some benching overlooking the pond. Kind of a beautiful view from the northwest corner. And then here, this is the view from the overlook. This is what existing conditions look like that are looking back at the existing homes to the east. And so that's going to be the view from the overlook. This is just more of the rendered view. So at this point, we have not made any determinations on site furnishings. Wanted to show a couple options, more recycled plastic with benching, or recycled plastic bench with metal, more metal bench or all wood. Similar situation for a picnic table, recycled plastic picnic table, all wood or potentially metal. I'm more inclined to utilizing metal and wood or metal and recycled plastic as a recommendation that I would have, but glad to take any comments that you all would like. Then we get into the boardwalk, and we didn't, there's maybe 6 different options for the boardwalk surfacing and railings. We're going to focus kind of on 3, just straight treated pine wood, and so that's going to be the least cost effective, or the least costly right off the bat, but then as we get into it, it's going to definitely be the most maintenance over time. And what we do have is opportunities to look at 2 different options. One is kind of a HDPE, which is really a structural based, let's say, Trex material, So Trex is a HDPE, just not structural. And then another option is a semi-affordable hardwood. And this is, I'm going to pass this around. I think this is my preferred option if the council is open to that thought process. But basically, in looking at the overall, when we get through the railings on this next slide, if we do go the option of either the HDPE or the hardwood on the surfacing as well as on the railings, it's going to be about a $400 to $500 upcharge of the $500,000 upcharge of the overall project in a costing perspective. And so then we also have fencing options where we could have wood or metal fencing, and that, you know, we are going to have fencing and gates. I didn't mention that earlier, but we will have a gate on the parking lot facility, and then fencing that kind of prohibits somebody from going from the parking lot and just like driving into the park. We will have that as well. And then you can see different railing options that are here. I really kind of like the clean, more modern look of the wire rope in the bottom right picture, but there's multiple different options between horizontal pickets, vertical pickets, or kind of the wire mesh option. The wire mesh option, you may think is pretty cost effective, but that's actually one of the most expensive options, as there's multiple layers of detail that has to go into that. So as we continue forward, really, we're going to come back and look to have a final council presentation and/or an updated community meeting here within the next 4 to 6 weeks, depending upon the outcome of today's conversation. Look to get into the later portion of the second quarter through the end of this year with developing the construction plans, and then look for the mid first quarter of 2026 being able to have plans available for staff to go out for bidding. When they're ready to go. At this point, we do have, for anybody in the audience, the updated information on the website. Carl's contact information, I can give you my cell phones, 904-476-5147. You can call or text me as well. But any questions that you guys have, glad to take them right now.
I'm sure we have several. So why don't I start down here with the vice mayor? We usually start down here, so.
Okay, thank you. Good presentation. Thank you very much. I'm not sure how much of this is available back during the public meetings, but this would have been a far cry better presentation than what we did get. So thank you for the improvement. A couple of real quick questions. Understory trees?
Understory, it's more flowering tree.
Okay. What you're talking about Springdale Pond, what governmental organization would control the wetland issue in that?
Water
State?
The Water Management District.
Swiftmud?
Yeah.
Okay. And with that, now that comes from the streets and overflow, and then that flows out the canal into the river?
Yeah.
That's the general, that's the overall path of the water flow.
I haven't analyzed the actual permit plans in great detail, but in general, there's water that's flowing into that pond, what I believe is from the downtown portion of the area into that pond. It's basically the water, it's a water quality facility along with a stormwater volume, and that's the reason why there's all that wetland species within to clean up that water before it is point source directly into the river.
We know what we have to do in order to go up to the limit on that, or is there, I guess my question is, can we do some things to it to make it look better without violating the wetland agreement, or what's our options with that?
Those are questions that I've already began conversations with Brian McCarthy, the city engineer, with his expertise and his department is really the driving force behind what we can and we can't do within that pond. So those conversations have already started on how we can improve the aesthetics of that pond and still have it function in the way it was intended to and permitted to.
The only other comment that I have at this point, I'm sure there'll be other questions. The only other comment I have is that in a reaction to the comments that were made by the public and so forth, I feel that this price went up quite dramatically over what we had originally talked about. So I'm not against it, still 100% behind the project. I think it looks great. I like the graphics of it, and I'll defer for any of the questions if there pops up. Yeah.
Councilmember
I have no questions, comments later.
Councilmember Fernandez.
I have a couple questions. With regard to the walkability, when we look at that space, we've been looking at it as a whole from the downtown area to walk through what is now a retention pond, but to make it more aesthetically pleasing and then connect all of that in a cohesive fashion to the park. So is that part of your design process?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really a big focus of this overall project is connecting the pedestrian from the downtown to the river. And so one thing that was not really considered, but I mentioned is more of a wayfinding options that really could be an additional task that we're glad to handle or however, but it'd be providing wayfinding signage that would be cohesive from downtown to the park. And so that way people kind of understood that pedestrian flow. So that portion, other than we recognize it from a conceptual standpoint, we haven't looked at any sort of design for that sort of wayfinding signage. But in reality is people are going to be able to access the park from the north, from the downtown core section. And, you know, visually, I mean, you can see across a good portion of this site and you can recognize if there is no sort of wayfinding signage, you could see all of the elements on the Springdale Pond portion, walk through that and then easily, you know, see across the street and so forth.
And so right now, I guess adjacent to the Springdale Pond, there is a commercial development, under development, and the site abuts the Springdale site.
Yeah.
Will there be an actual barrier between those, or will there be an opportunity for that commercial development? I'm asking because if I were a restaurant going into that commercial development, if it gets developed, to be open onto some open space, even if it's just a sight line, is more appealing than looking at a fence.
So right now, we've been discussing the potential for the development of a new wall, but what you're asking for can easily be determined at this point, however the council may want. I mean, I could fully understand that commercial development wanting to have views to and through the park. There's also been discussion for outdoor seating from that location. Carlos and the city are going to be putting out for an RFP the parcel just to the south, which would be for potential acquisition, which is the southwest corner of that pond as well. And so all of this would be really ideally accessed and viewed from those locations. So we can put up a wall if that's a request, or we could maintain that open.
I think the city manager has some input on this question too. Mr. Bia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So I think that you're speaking about Enigma?
Yes.
So the developer of Enigma has had a request about being able to take down the wall. The concern that myself and the team have is that there's a parking lot basically behind Enigma. It's not as if the restaurant is right up against the wall. So what you would be doing if you take down that wall, you would now have headlights going into the homes there along Springdale Place. That I don't think anybody really had a vision that would be what would be created there. And also there have been, as we know, that project has been somewhat of a struggle. And so our philosophy right now is to keep the wall where it is. I think we could contemplate, if the council so wished, there might be some openings and things like that we could consider. But I think that wall will need to be repaired and replaced, but there's some attractive materials out there, whether it be a wall or some type of fencing that would look more appealing. I think whatever you'd want to do, you want it to be complementary to this investment that the city is making. So personally, I mean, I don't know if having a parking lot immediately adjacent and now visible onto this beautiful path that we're contemplating here is really in the best interest of this investment. In the city's property to the south, which is what Mr. Loretta was just referencing at 8447, that's still a clean slate. Like, there's still some opportunities there for whatever development comes that could maybe make a more appropriate connection to that park space. So again, things to consider, but right now, at this moment, we are not recommending that the wall come down and be taken out.
Okay, and I just have a couple more questions.
Okay.
You spoke about nature play in the newer area of the park. So I'm actually very in favor of that type of addition where it's interactive, but not very busily interactive.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about zip lines or anything of that nature, but it'd just be more, it could be opportunities for ground level, pretty simple play materials within the grass, within the turf area. We can make it more formalized. If that's something that you would like us to look at, we can come back with more, more design or thought on that process.
Well, I'm just wondering what you can bring in that is still interactive, but not necessarily as busy as a full-on playground, but also it is a very beautiful natural setting. And what can we bring in to this setting that might be interactive nature-wise, not necessarily play, but I don't know what those options are, but I think it would be very nice if there are opportunities for people to interact more, whether it's even as simple as following some signage to look for certain plants or look to see if you see certain animals or something like that.
Well, and that's one of the things I did not mention. We are preparing or planning to have some not interactive, but more informational signage wrapping around Springdale Pond that'll include things such as the bird life that exists within the area, the wetland species, more identification of that stuff, and we can bring that across where the ditch is and talk a little bit of the hydrology if we'd like for the region as well. I don't know if that's fully interactive, but we're glad to look at some ideas on what this interactive element could be. I mean, I could see, it's not, again, a playscape, but, we could come out and put a large, boulder in the ground and figure out how to make sure that it's meeting the appropriate size so that way children could climb on it or folks could climb on it without it having a fall zone issue. There's all sorts of things that we could look at. It just really wasn't originally envisioned in the scope or anything of that nature, but it came up as a comment, so I wanted to bring it up.
Okay, then I just have one more question, and that has to do with the kayak access and the potential for other watercraft access. So one is, do we think that kayak space is actually large enough for the potential use? And then the other question is, and I don't know if this site is appropriate, but I know that in terms of the river itself in that area, it seems very appropriate for crewing. And I don't know if this area would be appropriate for people to be able to access with their crew boats, because that is becoming a much more popular sport.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a facility that's built for multiple people to come in and out of, in a moments by moments basis. So I would go to crewing as, you may have multiple different groups and teams coming out and, 4 to 6 people or even a 2-person crew boat. And it just, the crew typical vessel is going to be larger, things such as that. Here, you will have a pretty decent walk from the parking lot to get down to this location, and or you'll be able to utilize the vendor and go out from there. What we've done is, so the water fluctuates, and it's a little concerning on the water fluctuation, but what we've done is there is a defined canal in which is going up to the ditch, and that generally stays wet all the time, looking at historical aerials and so forth. And so we've located a floating dock platform, which, in my professional opinion, is appropriately sized for 2-3 people to be able to go out there, have an accessible, It could be ADA accessible or just a simple pull-through kayak launch location. I don't have a problem launching a paddleboard in this location, but I know many people do due to the potential threat of alligators and so forth. But so I'm not envisioning anything really other than kayaks, canoes, or paddleboards being utilized in this location.
Okay.
I would say if crew were to be something that, again, it's a long walk. So if crew were to be something that wanted to be focused, the park just, quarter mile, half a mile to the south would be probably more appropriate for that, other than the parking considerations around adjacent to the school, which complicates things down there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have a list, but some of it is not questions, it's feedback, so that'll be the next thing we get to, because
Yeah.
I'm sure my colleagues have some too, but I do have a couple of quick questions. And so, you mentioned shielding the parking lot from the road. You mentioned some landscaping or the parking lot from River Hills, there's like a.
Yeah, we've created, I mean, there's basically room between the Becca sidewalk and the right-of-way, and then the right-of-way to the parking lot. We've added a 10-foot buffer, which is what I would say is typical for most commercial places. Sometimes a commercial may only have a 5-foot buffer, but within that 10-foot area, we'll have trees as well as a shrub, shrubs to block views to see specific, lower shrubs that are gonna block the views of the cars, the bottom portion of the cars. I mean,
Okay,
if you have
so
SUVs.
that was what I wanted to question you about, and this is kind of trespassing over into a little bit of feedback, but I want to talk about that because I know that that's aesthetically appealing, but I'm not sure. I'd want to talk to the chief about CPTED, crime
Yeah.
prevention through environmental design.
Well, yeah.
Really think you need to be able to see all the way through this without any shielding, and I know people are going to be looking at cars sometimes, but I think
So-
everybody who drives down River Hills needs to be able to see all the way down to the river.
Yeah, so CPTED principle is really like 30 inches to, like 7 to 8 feet.
7 feet, yeah.
And so, in the end, we can definitely maintain, I think that's smart to just have lower shrubs or
Yeah.
native grasses.
Ground
in that
cover.
section to not be blocking any views. There's no, we're not in any way, shape, or form required to do certain.
The other question I had is, I know this is possible, is it advisable? Is there a plan, I'm looking at all three of you, because I know you, but is there a plan to somehow secure the boardwalk at night so that people after hours cannot access the boardwalk and go out to the canoe launch or go out on the tower, is there a plan for that? Because that area, no matter how much we make this visible, that's a long way from natural surveillance. So at night, people could be on the tower, they could be doing anything. Is there any plan?
Yeah, so, from my perspective, staff is gonna be working through a maintenance plan on how they're gonna coordinate the locking of the restroom facilities. Similar elements to that could be incorporated at the boardwalk, So we could definitely, within sections of the boardwalk, maybe not the entire boardwalk, because we still got east-west connection.
Yeah.
But the boardwalk along the waterfront, the overlook tower. I presume, though, that this is gonna become, favorite location for many people doing a sunset, and so forth. And so I really wouldn't want to recommend shutting it down, until at least an hour after sunset.
So that's a question that's a kind of a bit of a quandary, because I agree with you, that's sunset. But the section, if you try to gate off the whole thing, you just jump over the rail. That's not, you can't
Yeah.
do that. But if you gate it off the part where now you gotta go knee deep into the river to jump over the rail, right? Anyway, there's further discussion on that, I think, but that's my question. So, that's it for questions. So, anybody else have any other questions? Okay, don't go far, because I think we're gonna discuss some.
Sit right here, and if you have any
All
further, don't
right,
hesitate.
and, very good, and thank you, Mr. Letta. We're gonna have some discussion here, I'm sure. So, started down here with questions, we'll start down here with comments. How's that?
Well, I think that it's capturing a lot of what the council and the community have requested. And I'd like to see how well we can engage the community, and especially the people that live around that space. Because I think it's it's critically important. The other thing is, I do think that while this park space is not intended to be a destination in and of itself, it's still a component of space that we hope attracts people to the area and does become active. So I think we have to be very careful with how much activity we put in the space. But as far as what has been presented so far, I like the concept.
Okay. Councilmember Chambers, I think you had a few things?
I do, and I want to start off with a brief history of Riverside Park, since that was my project many, many years ago. And I say many years ago, so bear with me, this may get a little long.
Do we need to set the timer?
Yes, please do. When the city had the charrettes for all that area down there, one of the things was a park down there, but that current Riverside Park was intended to support the condos that were built on the piece of property that we're talking about now. So that was considered a neighborhood park, just like we've heard tonight about a neighborhood park. You know, the addition is still a neighborhood park, not a destination park. You hit it on there, but we also want to attract people to downtown. So I think that's important to know. So back when the charrettes happened and before the development, the city said to me, hey, we can do this park now. The condos, we're sure the condos will be built. So let's do the park first, and it'll be the cornerstone of the development and get it going. So that was 20-something years ago when this park was designed. And it was designed to support the condos there, but also the homes in that neighborhood, because the nearest park to them is Biltmore, and that's way away. So it was designed as a neighborhood park. Of course, it was built, and then immediately we had parking and traffic issues because a new park always attracts people. So that's a brief history of that. So we're adding on to that and improving it. I like all the concepts you have with the new space to fix Springdale Pond. All that is great, will work out good and attract people down there. But we just have to remember that it's still a neighborhood park. It's only going to have 20 spaces. To your comment about crewing, we've talked about crewing many times. River Hills Park is a more appropriate place, but they have their place on the canal now. So, maybe a one-man shell or something, for somebody's exercise, but not as teams and stuff. But anyway, I like all the things that you're planning to do. Mr. Langfeld, thank you for all that work. That's about it, other than, and I know it's a part of our goal setting, but this council and future councils have to be committed to putting the money into maintenance. I was just thinking the requirement on somebody to lock the boardwalk every night, things like that. And it's just going to be a lot of different, more staff costs. So that was it. That's more of a dissertation,
That
sorry.
wasn't so long. That wasn't, although I think you probably didn't exceed 3 minutes.
All right, so let me tell you about, we'll talk more, okay.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, again, as I said before, I like the concepts, they look really good. Some key issues, I really like the open sight lines down to as close to the water's edge as we can. I think that's critical throughout the entire park. I think that's very, very important. Security on the boardwalk is a concern, as well as using the right material so that they don't have to spend $125,000 in the next 5 years or so to replace that, because we'll all be gone by that time it happens. I do like the concept of making Springdale Pond as open as possible without having to reinvent the wheel. To your point, Carl, with your talks with Brian and so forth, and I'm glad Councilman Chambers brought up the issue of the neighborhood park, because that takes away a lot of the main having to supply a plethora of restrooms down there, because it is a neighborhood park. Biltmore, Bonnie Bray. None of them really have anything other than River Hills Park. So I think that's something to keep in mind. I like it. I think it's good. I think we're on the right path, and looking forward to the next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I do have some notes here of feedback. I'd like to know if you agree with me or not before. I don't want him just taking notes because I think it's a good idea. So I do agree with some members of the public who voiced concerns about the inadequacy of the restroom, the current restroom facility. And I know that it's only a 3 or 4 minute walk, depending on who you are. But I think there should be another small restroom structure built. But I think on the northeast part of this park, opposite from the southwest part where the current restroom facility is. I think if you are using the fitness equipment or you're picnicking near the entryway to the park, which is kind of near where the post office is, and you need to use the restroom, that's a hike. I mean, yeah, if you time it, it's maybe a 4 minute walk, but it's, I think, less than convenient. And I do think it should have another, I mean, we don't need a huge restroom facility, but I think another one would be a good idea. That's my opinion. I don't know what you think, but, yes.
And yes, but, you know, that's well over $100,000.
Yeah, I know.
Deal, so.
I know.
And plus more maintenance. And
I know.
again, if we're committed to that, I'm good.
I know, it does add a cost, but there's also, you know, I don't see this, it could be when we get closer down and you start talking about design build cost and that kind of stuff, that there's stuff that we'd like in this design that we can't afford to get right now. So there may be, it's probably pretty likely that there's gonna be some phasing to this because we're gonna get, you know, estimates that are higher than the money we have. I think it's important to build what we need to build to get people to use this and to activate the area, even if we have to forego something else that.
So a question to staff, can I?
Yeah,
Which relates
yeah,
to this. So staff and design team, with this idea of another set of bathrooms down there or anything else, can it be designed and presented in phases, all our items?
I think that there's certainly intelligent ways to look at the project and figure out what core pieces that we would incorporate into a first phase, and then how we would supplement the core park elements as we move forward. Ideally, you know, we build the whole thing at once, but you know, the finances may not add up to that. But I think if we can lay the foundation and put the park on site from one end to the other, and then as in future years, if we have to add an element or, you know, a piece to the foundation that we've already built, would be the smart way to phase this. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, all I was gonna say is we could definitely bring utilities to a location within phase one, so that way we're not demoing something at a later time, which would then allow for the easy construction of the restroom at a later time. The only element that I will say, the northeast corner of Springdale Pond, I haven't really evaluated that location.
It might not be.
Or it may be, but like adjacent to the parking lot, we can run sanitary sewer and water pretty close to that parking lot facility because there's utilities that I'm aware of there. Just on the northern corner of Springdale Pond, I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know exactly
That
where
might
the
not be
utilities are at
the
that
spot.
location.
So, yeah, that was just an example, but I think we need to incorporate that, even if we have to forego something else to offset the cost of that. So, the next thing, and this is, I would think this would happen anyway, I just want to get it on the record to make sure that it does. I know you're talking about 2 raised crosswalks, which are very close together, and then maybe murals on the pavement in between, which sounds cool, I like that. But I would want to make sure before we put 2 raised crosswalks that close together that our public works folks are engaged in this conversation to make sure that that is up, I'd like to make sure we get some feedback from Mr. Warren Fields and his crew over there in that before we just miss it and say, well, the council approved it. I'd like some dialogue with that. My opinion on the call boxes, the little 911 blue phone thing, that's 30-year-old stuff. I don't say there's a perfect thing we could cut, because I don't know when the last time anybody on USF campus has used one of those things. That's perfect cutting edge 1994 technology.
Older than that.
Yeah, that's I don't know how you guys feel about it. I don't know that anybody would even know what to do with that anymore. That's just my opinion, and that would save us, probably not enough for a bathhouse, but it'd save us something. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing, and you spoke about this already, so it's not really a question, but I've been down to the pond. I understand how it was permitted, and I knew that before you said it. It's a mitigation pond. I understand it's a functioning stormwater structure, and it's there to filter the water. I understand how that works. But my question would be, and you probably would do this anyway, it sounds like you're already doing it, but I had this conversation with the city manager when we were looking at this, and that is, could the vegetation that's in there, and you kind of alluded to this, it's pretty gnarly. It looks, I know that's a technical term, but it looks
It's accurate.
bad. I mean, it's functional, but I've also seen some of those ponds that are permitted the same way and function the same way that don't look like that. They've got cattails or something else in them, that serves the same purpose but looks a little more attractive. And I don't know if there's a potential to do, I understand that we can't make it a water pond, I get that, but there are some rough nature ponds that look pretty good, that don't look so overgrown and unkept. And so that's something I'd like to explore. Oh, by the way, that's a ditch tonight because of an oversight, but by the next meeting, this will be Enchanted Creek or something else. It will not be the ditch. We will have a name for this thing here pretty quick. Mr. Langfield, can you speak to us a little bit about how you envision the kayak and the canoe vendor situation? Because I know in the past when we were first talking about this on a conceptual basis, there was some discussion about, there's even like vending machines for kayaks. And so what do you envision?
So just a week or so ago, I had a meeting with a vendor that provides not only canoe and kayak launch rentals, or canoe and kayak rentals, but paddle boards, they do bikes, they do all sorts of stuff. And it's a big firm, and they do this nationwide, where we provide them with a place to put their equipment. A pad, and I've already discussed with them the size of the concrete pad that we would need to install for them to put their equipment in, and they would come with their racks. The firm that I was speaking with, their racks come in stacks of 4, and you can add as many stacks of 4 as you wanted to in order to meet the demand that your facility may have. I think for this facility, if we had 2 stacks of 4, that would be more than sufficient. And we discussed with them the size of the pad that we would need to put that on, and it would fit neatly kind of in that point area where the kayak launch access would be. The equipment would come with each locker, for lack of a better term, in the stack would include a single-person kayak with a paddle and a life jacket and a life vest. The entire process is cellular and solar powered. So other than putting the cage down, there's no power that needs to run to it. There's no phone lines that need to run to it or data connections that need to. It's all completely self-contained. We are responsible for getting the pad there, and once it's in place, They deal with the install. There's an upfront cost to us, which basically pays for the racks. And it's again, the firm that I was speaking to, there's a 5-year agreement with a revenue split between their firm and the city for each kayak rental. The upfront cost to pay for the kayak racks for the 2 racks, for 2 racks of 4, is going to be somewhere around $30,000. And at the end of the 5-year lease, those racks are ours. They stay with us. The rental firm would have a staff member or a paid employee in the area who would manage the maintenance of the kayak, the paddles, the life jackets, any damage, any theft, any vandalism, they pay for. They handle it. It's all on them. And then the process, we spoke a little bit about the process, and it's all through an app on a phone, where you download the app, you unlock the locker, remove the equipment, go paddling, put it back. It times how long you've been out with it, and then you get charged for that time that you were out with it. Again, their employee comes in and does routine maintenance and checkups on the equipment. We spoke a little bit about how our environment, my concern with our environment is a lot of these kayak rental kiosks are on ponds or lakes. Well, we're not a pond or a lake. We're a river. It's open on both ends. You can go to the river, to the dam on one end, or as far as you want on the other end. And was that a concern to them? They said, no, we have these on river-type environments all over the country as well. They cover all of the insurances. They maintain a $2 million liability insurance policy on the users of the equipment. So it seems like a good plan. There's some upfront costs to it. As far as, he says, you're not going to expect to pay off the $30,000 investment on a year's worth of rentals. It's going to take longer than that. The revenue split, I believe it was 70-30. They get 70, we get 30 out of each rental. He says they're very popular for sponsorships. So if we could engage with a company like REI and say, hey, would you like to sponsor this? Get people introduced to the outdoors, and now maybe they're going to want to go buy their own kayak from you. I think REI would be a tremendous company to go after and say, hey, would you like to help sponsor this? I hope that it kind of answered your question.
That did answer my question. Thank you very much.
Can I have a follow-up on that?
Yes, Councilmember Chambers.
And this facility, you could certainly bring your own kayak or canoe.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Okay. That's all I can think of. Is there anything?
I'm sure there'll be more in the next iteration.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Nothing comes to my mind.
Oh.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Appreciate you guys being here. It looks great. So we'll be done by, what, July 1st?
Yes.
Do they have enough to go back?
Thank you very much.
Did you, yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Loretta. Okay, council members, next item of business is the proposed city clerk recruitment process. So as you know, the city clerk has announced her retirement, and I have met with city manager and our HR director, primarily with our HR director and the city clerk, to discuss a proposed process for identifying a replacement. And so I'd like to share that with you tonight for your approval, your consideration, your comments. This is what we mutually came up with. So step one would be that we suggest we do this in-house as opposed to using a recruiting firm. Two primary reasons for that is, one is we know we have a really robust HR department in the city now that I think is extremely competent in doing executive recruiting, and I don't think we need an outside. I think we have world-class talent already on our staff. And two is it would, besides that, it would slow it down considerably because we'd have to go out for RFP to identify a recruiting firm. So we would never meet the date that she's going to retire if we do that. It's going to be tight as it is. So the our HR staff will prepare and post a position for advertisement. If you approve this, they're going to be working on that as soon as tomorrow. We've already looked at the job description and the minimum and preferred qualifications. We looked at the existing. We agree there doesn't seem to be any real wholesale changes. We talked to the city clerk about the current job description. Does it really fit the current day? And it seems to. So we're going to pretty much run with what we have. We talked about a little language cleanup here and there, but nothing substantive. So they would advertise the position, not just advertise it, but there's several places that HR uses besides Indeed. They go to the City Clerks Association, and that would be open on April 4th. The opportunity to apply, the window would be April 4th to April 30th for applications. They will compile all the applications. City Council will get all of them. However, they will be grouped into 3 groups. When they're given to us, they will identify who they believe are the top 5 candidates based on the qualifications that we put out. They will also, then the second group would be candidates that met the minimum qualifications. And then the third group, just for our visibility, are the people that applied but didn't meet the minimum qualifications. That's more for transparency so that we see everybody and there's no like, well, did they filter somebody out or, so we want to be transparent with it. All the applications will be provided to the City Council for review on May the 2nd. That is right after their deadline is April 30th. At the May 6th council meeting, we will discuss and determine who we believe are the 3 to 5 finalists. We'll be up to 5. It does not have to be. It could be as low as 3. I think less than 3 might not be a good idea. I think we need to have 3, at least. Following the May 6th council meeting, city staff will coordinate the date of the interviews. Interview process will consist of 2 stages, very similar to what we did when we identified Mr. Bahia. Stage 1 will allow the city council members to come in and conduct the one-on-one interviews with each candidate like we did for the city manager. That will take, depending on how many, could take up to 2.5 hours or as little as 90 minutes, depending on how. Then we will have public interviews that same day in the afternoon. We'll bring the candidates will come back after lunch for public interviews in here where we will do what we did with the city manager candidates. A little change, having Mr. Bahia went through the other side of that process and had some recommendations about being, I think we locked you in a closet upstairs or something while we were talking to the other candidates, so we're not going to do that this time. We'll be able to give the candidates a time so that when they're done in the morning, they know I'm free until 2 o'clock or 1:30 or whatever their time is to come, and they can go to lunch or they can hang out here, they can go to the library, or they can do whatever they want to do. They know what time to come back. We'll have public group council interviews in here in the afternoon. Following those interviews, we will move to place the ranking of the top 3 candidates on the next regular council agenda, or for expediency, we may have to, and I think we probably will have to, opt to schedule a special meeting for this purpose. And so we talked this week about, I think it's very likely in order to meet the timeline that we will need to schedule a special meeting, and it will probably be before we've conducted the interviews because our rules call for us to schedule a special meeting in a regular meeting. So when that time comes, we will have that under new business or on the council agenda or something that we need to schedule a special meeting. Once we identify I think that at least the top 2, if not the top 3, but hopefully we can identify, okay, this is our top pick, but this would be our second pick, and maybe even our third pick. Then, and this part is up to the council after this. Another decision point is in the past, the mayor has been identified to work with our HR director to negotiate with the identified candidate the terms of their contract and start date and salary and all that stuff. And then it would then, of course, the contract would come back for the council for approval, and then we would make a decision to approve the contract and hire the person. So that's the proposed pathway. it's really very similar to what we did in the past. It's also very similar to what we did at the Transportation Planning Organization. I was tasked with leading the committee to hire the new executive director there right after we hired Mr. B. So it's kind of a hybrid of the two processes, along with input from Mr. Nazario. So that's what I propose, but this is your decision.
I think it works. I'm in favor of it.
It looks like a good process,
I'll make a motion. Do we need a motion for it, or
or just consensus.
just consent?
I don't think we need a motion. Do we need a motion? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Move forward with the process.
Does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Next item I have for your consideration is the relinquishment of a position on the school support committee. It does not happen often, but occasionally, because of personal obligations or illnesses or things that come up, people are unable to meet their attendance obligation on a board, and it can be for a variety of reasons, who knows. And so we do have an individual on the school support committee who has not met the attendance requirements, and therefore we are looking for the council to approve us to remove that person and recruit a replacement.
So I just have a question.
Yes.
So the process is that this council would need to remove this person, and then that opening would be advertised.
Correct. That would be the process. Yep. We do need a
Yeah,
motion for that.
Move to approve. There you go.
Second.
Is there discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Madam Clerk, if you would please see to that. And on a related note, with your, I'll bring this back to you for your approval, but I don't want to do the work if you don't like the idea to begin with. Our council rules are currently silent on some of this, about how this is supposed to work. I would propose that I come up for your consideration at a future council meeting, an addition to the council rules, that we would revise and add a section for the board. I think it would be a good idea to kind of spell out what the council liaison's role is to the boards, and spell out to the boards what their role is as advisory boards or their quasi-judicial boards, and that kind of thing. What your role is as the liaison, and then what happens if somebody doesn't work out, or what, we have it in a little more delineated, so we don't have to. It doesn't happen often, but it does come up periodically. So if that's okay with you, I will do the work, and I will not promise to you when I'm going to have it back, but I will bring it back.
Do any of the boards have any procedures?
They do, and they do, and in this case,
Makes it easier.
yeah, in this case, what we did here tonight was in the school support committee rules.
Yeah, okay. I thought there was something.
But it should be fairly, the rules should be really consistent across the boards, and I'm not sure they are. And
Some are
so,
not, no.
yeah, some of it you can't miss 2 meetings, some of it you can't miss 3 meetings, some of it you can't, and then the chair people from the boards are often confused about their role too. It's like, am I supposed to be the one that writes them a
Yeah.
letter, or is that the council liaison, is it the mayor?
Some of that, when you're talking, it's one thing to miss so many meetings if the board meets monthly as opposed to quarterly.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
You're going to have to figure that out.
Exactly, so, anyway, if you guys are okay with that, I'm gonna
Yes.
work on that, okay. All right, any other carryover council business?
I have one item.
Yes, Councilmember Fernandez.
At the previous meeting, we did have people present that would like to have the city of Temple Terrace remove the fluoride additive from the water. And I just wanted to give an update from that. I know this council said that they wanted to wait and see what the state did before this council takes action one way or the other. But I do want to let you know that Plant City just recently voted to remove the fluoride from their water. I believe Lakeland will be voting, or if they have not already.
They have already.
And Miami-Dade also just removed the fluoride from the water. And all of them at this time are following the state of Florida Surgeon General's recommendation. So my personal opinion, I would like this council to discuss it prior. I'm not really concerned about what the state decides, since we are the governing body over this utility. So I wouldn't mind having a discussion amongst, I'm not saying decision tonight, I'm saying possibly schedule a time for a discussion amongst this council where we can at least air out the pros and cons without waiting for the state. But at the last council meeting, that was the preference, that we wait for the state to work through their process.
I heard what the other council members said. I wasn't here, obviously, but it's my preference to wait too. And if we started tomorrow, we couldn't act fast enough to beat the farm bill. We couldn't get it done. By the time we scheduled a special meeting and then we summoned,
100 experts.
yeah, I don't, we summoned, I don't even know who that would be. But, by the time we even had this conversation or begin to have it, they'll be done. If this were 6 months off or something, I would agree with you. But this has been through committee. These farm bills are racing forward. The governor's sitting there with his pen waiting to sign the thing as soon as it gets through. If we started tomorrow, we couldn't beat that. I will say this, that if the bills pass, which I'm sure they're going to,
They appear to be.
Yeah, they're on the track. There's no, I say there's no way, this is Tallahassee, but it's highly unlikely that these bills will fail. The governor is poised to sign them as soon as it. Now, it will likely be, it will take effect July 1st. When these bills are signed by the governor into law, I would be agreeable if somebody were of the mind to make the motion that we not wait till July 1st. Why would we need to wait? We can tell Mr. Warrenfeld, stop putting the stuff in the water tomorrow, and then once we use whatever water's already in the tank. But, this has been added to water since the 1940s. I don't think another 3 weeks is going to make a big difference. I just don't see the added expense, the added work, and we can't get it done by the time, we wouldn't get finished before this is done anyway.
Well, then I will agree, and we can wait for the state to, this is what I will request. If for some reason it doesn't prevail at the state level, I would like the city to discuss.
That's fair, and I know how important this issue is, not only for you, but there's others too. And if for some reason this fails and does not get, that, in my opinion, and I can't tell the council what to do, but I'll be right with you. I think if this fails, if it's important to a council member, it's important to all of us, or it ought to be. And I think it's important to you, I know it is, and I think there's other people in the community that's important to. So you will have my support in that if something happens at the state level. I just don't see the reason to spend the money and the
Energy.
we're gonna pack this room with 100 people, and there's gonna be 50 over here that are citing experts that say no fluoride, and there's gonna be 50 over here, and we're gonna be less like I remember the COVID thing, follow the science. Well, whose science? You got 50 doctors over here and you got 50 doctors over here. Which science do you follow? I think this is an important thing for our city to have this discussion, regardless of how hard it might be. But I don't think there's any reason to have it at this point. So if we get to the end of April when the session ends and nothing happened, I'm with you. In my opinion, yes, we need to have it.
Okay, well, that's my request.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
We get to the end of the session, they haven't approved it, I'm all for the discussion.
Yeah, I think we have to have it. We can't just not, everybody else is having it. We need to have it. Okay. Other council business?
I have one
One more?
new item.
Yep. Oh, new business or?
Well, it's new.
Well, we're moving there next, so go ahead.
Okay, so for those of you who have lived in Temple Terrace a long time and maybe attended King High School or know people who did, Coach Macaluso has been a very long time baseball coach. I had 3 of my sons play baseball for him, and he was my driver's ed instructor at King. He is officially retiring from coaching baseball, and his last game is April 10th, which is a Thursday night. So I think the game actually starts at 7. So for those of you who are connected to King High School baseball in any way, I encourage you to come out and attend that game, or at least come out for the beginning for all of the pomp and circumstance surrounding his retirement.
Thank you for bringing that up. I should have thought about that. Thank you. Any other council business or new business? I have some new business, and as you know, I wasn't here for last week's council meeting, but I watched it. And I have a question for Ms. Shoshone about some things that I heard that are rather disturbing to me. And I don't like where we are with this, and I don't know what the cure is or if there is a cure. There were 2 land use matters before this council during that meeting. One involved Florida College and one involved the Rollerson Ranch property owned by Dr. Patel. In both of those land use meetings, there were comments made about an expectation of future reciprocity for our decision. Florida College, and that's not my word, that was Councilmember Kravitz's word. Florida College was told prior to the vote that this is us jumping through hoops to maintain harmonious relationship with Florida College, and I hope this is based on future reciprocity. That is terrible. We do not make land use decisions based on our expectation that we're going to get something back in the future. The second one is even more egregious in my mind, and that was where he asked, who he thought he was speaking to Dr. Pell, thank God he wasn't, where he asked Mr. Bagdy if he felt morally responsible to give the city another $1 million. He brought that up more than once, and then prior to the vote said something to the effect of, I hope the applicant ventures some future way to make the, to address these concerns. He's asking the money for $1 million to a petitioner that has to come back before this body at least 2 more times for approvals. So what if we don't like the site plan and we disapprove it? Isn't a normal person going to assume it's because they didn't give us the $1 million they were asked for? So we cannot make these comments about quid pro quo and future expectations, and so I'm very concerned about this. I'm not even sure this is legal, but what is the cure for this?
Fortunately, that this did not come from any other council members. This was one person's opinion, and yes, quid pro quo is not allowed in city government, and those were improper comments. All we can do basically is, as a council, repudiate them. So.
Okay, so I mean, we can't unring the bell, I guess, but I'm really concerned primarily about the Rollerson Ranch property that has to come before us at least 2 more times. And I'm concerned that we now, our freedom to disapprove something that we don't like is now, I mean, we don't, I feel like our hands are tied now. We got to approve it because we've asked for $1 million.
No, certainly not. I mean, you certainly need to make your decision based on whatever evidence is presented to you. So the fact that somebody made a comment should not sway you one way or the other. I mean, and if they are for some reason denied and choose to raise that comment and bring that as a court action, we will vigorously defend against it. And I don't have really any concerns in that regard because, again, nobody else up here said anything and it was not a decision of council.
Okay, thank you. Any other new business? Okay, thank you. Mr. Bahia, City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Several weeks ago, I think it actually was in a council update, I communicated to the council concerns about Ridgedale Road and some of the traffic mitigation efforts that we had looked at and we were continuing to look at. So I just want to talk a little bit about that this evening. I think we have a recommendation of an action plan we want to put forth. So first of all, Ridgedale Road for the council and the community, as you know, is a very straight shot linear road. It's a popular cut through for drivers, particularly those in the morning heading south to get to the lower part of 56th Street to cross the bridge, and then obviously in the evenings coming back. But that's not what makes that corridor unique. What truly makes it unique is the fact that in a very small area, we have a cluster of very important public institutions who attract a lot of activity, particularly with children. So you've got the Temple Terrace Elementary School, you've got the Corpus Christi School, you have the Ridgedale Sports Complex, you have the first fairway of the Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club, you have Woodmont Park nearby, and we all know that the majority of our outdoor events, special events, take place at Woodmont and on the first fairway, and people, in fact, will park on Ridgedale and cross, and there's a lot of movement going back and forth, and so all of that conflates with, again, people driving on the street. Over the last several years, we have done a number of traffic studies, or speed studies, I should say, in that corridor. They've shown different things, but they at times have shown that there have been excessive speeds noted. We have responded to that with targeted enforcement by our PD. They've done a great job. Also, this past year, we installed new flashing beacons for the school zones. We installed new signage, new striping. So I think that's also gone a long way. But I think because we're continuing to observe it, and we have resident concerns about that corridor, particularly with this, again, unique circumstance of all these public institutions, that what we've come to consensus in the leadership team is we'd like to propose, and we're ready to pull the trigger on this, installing speed humps on Ridgedale in that area, again, where the public institutions are. These would be the rubberized speed humps like we've installed recently in Knights Branch. They're bolted into the asphalt, so we could consider it a test, if you will, or a pilot, see how it works. And then what I would also recommend doing at the same time that we're installing new speed humps on Ridgedale would be replacing the ones on Sunnyside. So as you know, I mentioned this is a cut through, so the cut through on the south side of Bullard becomes Sunnyside. Historically, there were speed humps there. They were installed several years ago. They were an original sort of prototype, very low profile. They don't really make much of a difference to most drivers. So the new speed humps are a little bit more rigorous in terms of the impact. So we want to replace those and install new ones. Mr. Warrenfeld's had some pricing. They're probably going to have to go and refresh those prices. But if council agrees this evening, we'd be ready to go. He'd be looking to get new pricing and then get a purchase order issued and installed within the next several weeks. Yeah, it depends on shipping, exactly. So just need to get your blessing this evening if that's the direction we'd like to go.
I'm good with it.
I just have one question.
Sure.
And you talked about your management team. Fire's okay, because I know that was a concern before.
Yep, that's a very good question, and I've mentioned that in public here and also at the council. So I've spoken with Fire Chief Kemp a number of times. He's not here this evening, he couldn't be here, but Operations Chief Murley is here in case you have specific questions. But originally, Chief Kemp had a concern about, when he was first heard about this notion, about what it would do to impact response times and wear and tear on the vehicles, because they go up in this road quite a lot. The more Chief Kemp and I have spoken about this and the more observations he makes, and he recognizes all these challenges with all these public institutions right there, I think his understanding was they're in the safety business and they don't want to be the ones standing as an obstacle to the enhanced safety of the corridor, particularly with children. So he's amenable to doing it. I think our understanding is, again, we're putting these in. These are not asphalt, they're rubberized. So if there's an issue we encounter later on, that we could reduce them. We could remove them, I should say, or change where they are. The response times, you do have to go obviously slower. That's the whole point of these things. But if you look at our fire apparatus, and Chief Murley, I'm sure, can attest to this, you go to some communities and the fire, they're flying down the roads. And we don't do that here. I mean, we travel at pretty much the speed of that you'd see on the residential neighborhoods. So I don't think the speed concern, the response is going to be that impacted. Yes, several seconds will be lost, but again, I don't think that's going to be such a dramatic impact that we'd have these valid concerns that not to do it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Other comment?
Yeah, that was my question also.
I have one comment I want to see if my colleagues agree with this. So I think you and I have spoken, so you're not hearing anything you didn't already know, but I think this is a good idea because of the nature of that road and the fact that there's several public institutions right there, the ball fields, the schools, and that's not really a neighborhood street. I mean, there are homes on it, but it's more of it's a through street. And so because of the public institutions and the fact that it's a through street, I think this is proactive for you to do this. This is good. What I want to see if everybody's in agreement is I'm a little concerned, and you are too, I know we've talked about this, is I don't want to take away from, we have a very good policy in place for neighborhood streets, for neighborhoods that when the residents want speed humps, we have a great policy that the city managers put in place, and we blessed it, where the neighbors petition, and over half of them gotta want it, because you always get the 50 people over here and 50 people over here, half of them don't want them. So, and then we commission a traffic study to see if they're warranted, or is there really a problem. I think we need to, on neighborhood streets, be sure that we're adhering to our current protocol. This street is different. This street is a through street. We have two schools, the library, the ball fields. This is different. I just want to make that distinction. Do you guys agree with that? Because I don't want to start a thing where,
I agree with
well, you
that.
did it for my neighborhood, now you got to,
I agree with that, as long as we notify the residents along this, you don't have to go all the way to the Druid Hills on Ridgedale, but to notify them that they're going in. I think.
There's what, 5, 6 houses?
Yeah.
Maybe on the whole strip, the whole stretch that empty out onto it. So, yeah, I agree. That'd be a good approach. As long as we don't.
We're gonna do it.
Negate it.
Just let them know that this is happening.
Right. As long as we don't negate our policy for other neighborhoods.
that's what I want to make
Yeah.
sure. So
Yeah.
I don't want at the next meeting somebody to come up and say, well,
This
now I
is-
don't have to do a survey now or a petition because you know.
I agree, it's not really a neighborhood street.
Yeah. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you on that. The second item I wanted to bring to the council and the public's attention is several months ago, the county commission, and we've spoken about it here, a stormwater study. They have, the consultant was retained. I mentioned at the last meeting that the consultant has reached out. We have a meeting scheduled for, I believe it's April 22nd. Mr. Warrenfeldt and I to sit down with their consultant. But in the meantime, we were just notified that they're going to be holding public engagement meetings through various high schools and other schools in the area. So I just want to announce the ones there's several that are not in Tampa. There's none in Temple Terrace, but there's several that are not in Tampa. I'm just going to give you the Tampa ones for the public, so you have the dates, and in case anyone's interested. I will also ask that our public information officer put this on the website after the meeting. So on April 15th at 6:30, there'll be a meeting concerning this issue at Pierce Middle School in Tampa. Then on April 23rd at 6 p.m. at the Carrollwood Cultural Center, also obviously in Tampa, or in Carrollwood. And then on May 12th at 6 p.m. At the UACDC. And then on May 15th at 5:30 p.m. at the Jimmy Keel Public Library on Bears Avenue. And those are the ones that right now have been scheduled that we're aware of. Like I said, we'll put the information out there for the public. Obviously, this is for the entire county, so if they're Temple Terrace residents, particularly those that were impacted by flooding, I would encourage them to attend and have their voices heard.
Very good.
And the last thing I have is just to invite Mr. Langfeld to come up and talk to us about Student Art Initiative.
Welcome back.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Carl Langfeld, Leisure Services Director. I'm sure you've all heard of the Louvre and the Guggenheim. Rumor has it they have some nice artwork there. But next Thursday, April 10th, we will be hosting an art exhibition of artwork made and done by the students in our after-school program at the Family Recreation Complex. This event will be from 5:30 p.m. until 7 p.m. Come early, go make a baseball game, make an evening out of it. So this will all be artwork done by the students in the after-school program. The facility will be decorated to try and make it look like a nice fancy art museum for the night. There'll be refreshments served at the event, so please come out And we'll see if we can't put the Mona Lisa to shame. So I hope to see you all there.
Thank you, Mr. Langfeld. That's all you have? City Attorney's report.
I don't have anything to report. However, if I can just go back for a moment, since I was not prepared for your question before, I did mention repudiation of a comment made by any council member. And that can be done either by censure or by resolution. A censure is a formal public group condemnation of an individual whose actions run counter to the group's acceptable standards for individual behavior. Or you can do by resolution, a formal expression of opinion or an action taken by a group, in this case, the city council, to express disagreement or disapproval of the statement. So
Well,
that would be,
does that materially change anything, though? I mean, I'm not trying.
it just puts it officially on the record that, so that it would make it harder to point to that as being some sort of a reason for a future action by the council. But it's not something you need to do tonight, but it's up to you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Nothing else.
I have a
Councilmember
question.
Fernandez, yes.
This question is for the city attorney, and that is, I know that we have a policy that council members cannot respond on Facebook, specifically when people are commenting about city issues or they have questions. But my question really is, school board, Hillsborough County School Board members and the Hillsborough County Commissioners, they have Facebook pages and are able to engage with the public. Is there a way that, and the reason I ask is because that's a format that's a lot easier for me to engage with people, and I see the comments and I can't answer them, and so what I do, and not that anybody calls me, but I respond to the comments and say, please, I'm not allowed to comment on your post per our policy, but please call me to discuss. But there are a lot of times where there's a question posed that would be a very simple answer. I have my personal policy. I don't engage in discussion, back and forth discussion on social media, because I don't think it ever works out right. But it would be easy to answer. So how can those other entities have Facebook pages? And is there a way that as a council person for City of Temple Terrace that we can emulate their process?
I think the mayor might have.
No, I can
might have
answer
got
that.
an
I mean,
answer to this one.
First of all, it's not a policy, it's a state law. It's not city policy, it's a state law. Second of all, I do know cities, I know mayors and other cities where the city hosts a Facebook page for each of the elected officials. Most of the cities I know, maybe not all of them, but most of the cities have like seat 1, seat 2, seat 3. So it's that Facebook goes with that seat, right?
Right.
It can be done. We could conceivably do that here, where the city hosts a Councilmember Fernandez Facebook profile, and each of us would have your own official city Facebook page. If you want to spend the money to do that, it's very expensive, because there's all kinds of, you got to do the records retention, you've got to do the moderation, or not moderation, that's the wrong term. Somebody's got to look at this.
So how are the BOCC and the school board, are they doing that?
Yeah, it's a hosted, just like your email account here is official city email account.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about saving stuff because IT's doing it.
Yes.
And so it's the same thing if you had a social media account. It's not difficult to do, but it's expensive on staff's part.
Okay.
It's not expensive like to get Facebook. It's not, but it takes a lot of work on staff part. Because I know Coral Springs, the mayor down there is a buddy of mine, and they do it. In fact, I think they gave a presentation at a conference I was at about how they do it. I mean, it's doable, It's just, there's gonna be a budgetary impact of doing that. But, I mean, it is something that could be done if you guys wanna do it. It's just, do you wanna spend the money to do it?
Well, I think it may be something that, I'm not asking to do that right now. Obviously, I don't know the monetary impact, but I think it's something that we probably need to look at because more and more people are communicating through a social media platform than other formats. And especially, not to age ourselves, but as the population gets younger, they are much more apt to take to social media versus other formats. And while this was a small town and has been, and you're working concession at the baseball field and people come up and tell you things or whatever, it's not quite that interactive anymore.
It gives me heartburn though, as the city attorney, because if someone is asking you your opinion and you're giving them your opinion on an issue that is going to come up in front of city council, and you state that opinion, and then they turn around and go on to another council member's Facebook page and says, well, Councilmember Fernandez says this about this, they've become a conduit of a communication that is not really in the sunshine. It's only in the sunshine if it takes place at a duly noticed public meeting. So if you're going to be giving you, I mean, if somebody says, asks you a question about what's some activities that are going to happen in Temple Terrace this weekend, you can, that's really no problem. You can comment on that. But if you're really giving your opinion about a particular issue that's going to be on an agenda, you're risking getting into a lot of problems here. And I just could never recommend that all the council members have their own Facebook pages and start discussing city issues that way.
I'll give you an example, and I'm not asking, I just want us to consider, because connectivity to the citizens is always an issue. But, so the example is, there were comments or questions asked about the land use, one of the land use items that we discussed at the previous meeting. And it would be, some of the questions that were asked, it would be a simple matter to just respond to answer it. But we don't, and I didn't, obviously. The only thing I have ever responded to anybody's questions online is, I would love to discuss this with you, or if you have questions, please contact council or staff members, but most people don't. So that's where I just want to look at the best ways to stay accessible to the public. That's it.
Councilmember Chambers?
Sure. Okay, so I don't do a lot of Facebook, but I do monitor all the city, Temple Terrace Bulletin Board and some of the other ones. And when I see something like you just mentioned, I send a note to the city manager and I tell them you need to look at this issue, and it's usually someone from our media department or someone responds to that. That's how I do it.
Okay.
Same here.
Yep,
Mr.
that's
Villa,
it.
did you have, you're good? Okay. All right, where were we? You were still on your report, are you?
Yeah.
I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
Council members, anything else?
Good.
Anything on Iron Blanc?
Art on ball?
Art and Block, a report on Iron Block, it was excellent. We had great weather, we had good crowd. What was interesting was, unfortunately, the date we had to pick was at the end of spring break. So there were at least 3 groups that normally come, and we didn't have them, but yet we still had the same number of people. And we also, I did a little poll to the audience, and a lot of first-timers were there, which was really good, because that means we're exposing people to Temple Terrace and this stuff. We gave away a lot of auction items and an award for the table decorations. And this one group that won the award Best Overall,
Yep.
that was Councilmember Fernandez and her team.
It was not me. I like to say, for the record, I only did what I was told. But it was very fun. It was a great night. And it's nice to see that there were people that it was their first time coming.
It was a lot of fun. And I have one more thing.
Sure.
You know, you talked a little bit about the procedure for the new city clerk. We can fix this, and I'd like to make a motion that we do not accept the resignation.
Second.
April Fool.
We're not gonna let her retire, huh? Okay. So one final comment to our staff. I just want you to know we really do appreciate what you do. I say this periodically. I hope you know it's sincere, and it's not just from me, it's from the whole council. I know that it can be rather unfun to present to council sometimes, and it can be nerve-wracking, I understand. But just know that we really appreciate what you do. You are very much appreciate all the work that you do. We don't do anything to deliver services to our constituents here. It all goes through you, and so you take very good care of our city, and we appreciate it and thank you. So, anything else? All right, we're stand adjourned.